We want to turn back to that custody dispute killing case going on in Oregon. A sentencing hearing is happening right now for defendant Paige Vannorsdall, who pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter in the shooting death of her ex-husband, Devyne Briggs, or Devyne Briggs, excuse me, back in 2022. Now, we've been pausing testimony to get you caught up, but I do want to mention this. When you see the video, there are what appears to be a focusing device or a crosshair on the screen. These are not our cameras. There's nothing we can do about it. We still feel that the testimony is compelling enough to continue to bring to you. So hopefully you can overlook that. Just go now back to the custody dispute killing case going on in Oregon. A sentencing hearing is happening right now for defendant Paige Vannorsdall, who pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder, and now she's pleading guilty to manslaughter in the shooting of her ex-husband, Devyne Briggs, back in 2022.
When we left off in court, Jackie Rubio is the mother of the victim. She is speaking. It's a victim impact statement. Let's go back to court.
Freeze. I hope the fear in my mind immediately goes to something happened to them. I'm in fear every single day of one of my other kids or my grandson will die. This is a hard way to live. I've spent 18 months trying to sleep myself to sleep. I've spent 18 months without a phone call from my son. I've spent 18 months without seeing my son, 18 months without celebrating a holiday. I will never see him on this earth again. My once tall, handsome son is reduced to a box of ashes. I'm not even able to bring myself to look at it. My family will never have the joy of celebrating Christmas. It will always be the mark of Devyne's murder during that time of year and the loss of my grandson. Calling such an evil act manslaughter and only giving her such a light sentence is just more cruelty for Devyne's family and friends to endure. Not allowing the trial and the testimony to be heard that law enforcement and DHS believe that my grandson was being coached to say allegations against his father is also completely unfair. My son's death should never be tied to those proven to be unfounded allegations. My grandson should never be raised where he can think those things of his father. She not only murdered my son to get away with full custody rights, she's also wiped any chance his son has of good memories or love of his father or his father's family away. My objection to manslaughter and the light sentence is not justice for my son. There is no justice for Devyne. He died horribly. He died in pain. He died scared. He died getting 9 bullets put into him at close range. He died in pain. There is no justice for Devyne. I ask for justice for my grandson, who had to witness his father's murder, who had to be a pawn in her manipulation and her control issues. I ask for justice that his loving father was taken from him and he was placed in her family's home where the same parental alienation and narrative of his father continues to be instilled. It was not enough to murder his father, but she has the power to continue to brainwash my grandson. Shortly after Devyne's murder, I was with my grandson going through Devyne's wallet. We pulled out a receipt for $3,900. It didn't say who it was to, but I knew it was for his attorney that he retained to fight for the time with his son. When my grandson saw the receipt, he looked at me and he said, "I bet my dad gave this to a homeless man because he was a nice guy. He deserves to still be able to have those good thoughts of his dad." Now with nobody around, no pictures of his dad, no good memories of his dad, all the thoughts are wiped out by brainwashing and allegations. In the 18 months she's been incarcerated, she has shown absolutely no remorse. She continued with her coaching of my grandson and false narrative of his father in our family. She shows up on jail video, smiling and waving at her family. She's recorded on jail calls telling my grandson that I'm stupid and I am a liar, just weeks after she murdered my son. With the sentencing that the plea agrees to, there is a chance she will still be young enough to produce another child when she gets out. This is a huge concern. She's already proven that she's willing to murder a man over a custody disagreement and to get what she wants. And she has already proven to lie and manipulate and control a small child to get away with it. It is too big of a risk that she be allowed to get out of prison, have another child, and murder another man. She is allowed visits, phone calls, video calls with my grandson. My son can never pick up the phone and call his son. My son can never have another child. My son can never see his report cards. My son can never be part of his life. He will never be able to be a grandparent, but she will get all of these things. It's not right that you can murder a man in cold blood, keep full custody of your child, and then receive a light sentence and continue to be in your child's life. It is my belief that the prosecution's case was extremely strong, and this was a cowardly way out for Paige. She does not have to face a jury of 12 to tell her that she's a murderer. She does not have to let all the information and the testimony come out that she's a liar and that my son was falsely accused and viciously murdered. The people who support her story will never know the truth because we're not going to trial. I believe for the prosecution, the only reason we're not getting any kind of a trial or justice for my son's murder is because the prosecution just needs to get this off his caseload. Why should our family go without justice because the DA's office is understaffed? With all the injustices that we've had to endure, the senseless murder of an innocent man, the loss of contact with my grandson, and the hatred and lies that he continues to be fed, I ask that at least that could be done is her sentence be a straight sentence with no chance of early parole, no chance of good behavior, and I ask this from the bottom of my heart. Your Honor, I respectfully ask that you finally put an end to some of our suffering and hand down a harsher sentence, a sentence fairer for the crime of murder. To Paige, all I want to say is there is no thoughts.
Comments are not to be directed at the defendant. This is a sentencing, but the comments are to be directed at the court.
So that is, I will sustain that objection,
Okay.
but I'll let you continue. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to say that there is no thoughts of seeking revenge, and I'm not foolish enough to think this is changing her mindset or making an impact. Nothing spoken here will penetrate her. I just pray that one day, the full weight of what she's done and the murder of an innocent man, the fact that you have left your son fatherless and helpless in a home you know is not safe, a home that you've had to flee from, whether it is in public or in private, that you will feel the whole truth of your actions and you will live
Objection,
with
Your Honor.
that for the rest of your life.
She's still directing her comments.
So I'm going to let her make her victim statement in the manner that she sees fit. I don't believe that she's directing it directly. I think she's speaking her truth as she feels it. So I am going to allow her to complete her statement. Go ahead, ma'am. No, you're okay.
Ooh, speaking her truth as she feels it, I have no doubt that's accurate. We're going to hit the pause, squeeze in another break. We'll get you, of course, back to more of the impact statements when we come back. Stay with us here on Court TV Live.
Welcome back, folks. Before we head back to court, let's bring in our guest. Trial attorney Michelle Thomas is still with us. Michelle, I just got to jump out something that jumped out at me, and that's how this mother was really not happy with the plea. We know today victims have a real role in how these cases play out, but here she's upset. She's saying that she feels she didn't get justice, basically because the DA is understaffed. What are the circumstances that can come in or come into play when a victim and the DA's office are not in line and that victim's family isn't happy?
Yeah, you can see that this mother was really upset and even asked the court to still impose a sentence that was consistent with murder, which of course the court cannot do. But I think, the prosecutors generally do consult with the family of the victim to try to get their input before they make the final decision. Legally, the final call is going to be up to the prosecutor to negotiate the plea deal and up to the court to accept it. But certainly the family can and probably has been vocal, both to the prosecutor's office about their objections, probably lodged objections to the court. Sometimes family will even try to garner publicity, bring publicity to the case to try to pressure the prosecutor to do something different. But I think we're seeing it play out where this family is setting forth their reasons for wanting the maximum sentence imposed possible by this court because they do not believe justice has been served. And it's a really sad situation. And it makes you wonder, how much did the prosecutor include the family of the victim in deciding to negotiate this plea deal?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there are the legalities that sometimes do not feel to any victim like it's justice. She repeats, it's no justice for my son. She also says, she wants a straight sentence with no opportunity for parole. The judge is going to make the decision. We wanted to mention quickly for viewers to understand that actually the state and the defense reached a recommended agreed to sentence of 214 months, 18 years, plus 26 months post-prison sentencing. The judge does not have to do that, but that's what they've agreed to ask for from the court. So now let's go back into court where the victim's mother is still speaking her truth.
Continue to advocate for father's rights and the removal of a law that allows a murderer to maintain custody after killing the other parent. And I will continue to pray every single day that I can forgive her and her family from what they've taken from me. I started this statement stating December 16, 2022 was the worst moment of my life. However, July 22nd, 2024 may end up being much worse if I am forced to sit and watch a sentence of manslaughter and chance of early parole and good behavior being handed down to the woman who murdered my son. And that's all.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, do you want to say your name with her?
Yeah, please
here
come.
and Tell the court your name, and then I think they'll invite you out.
You can come up here. Yeah. And if you could state your name, please.
My name's Anthony D'Angelo. I was Devin's father.
Go ahead.
I miss my son. He was an unexpected gift in my life. We talked 4 to 5 days a week for an hour at a time. There was never a shortage of things to say. Life was busy for the both of us. Now there is silence, deafening and depressing. The silence has grown, a weight on my soul that holds me back. On some days, it keeps me from even getting out of bed. There is a hole in my heart and a hole in my life from his absence. Daily, I dwell on his loss and the circumstances surrounding it. Memories of him and adventures we shared bring some comfort that disappears, and I am left with the realization that there are no more memories to be made. I'm faced with the evil that has taken not just one life from me, but 2. The daily and weekly conversations with Devin were augmented with bi-weekly FaceTime videos of remote control cars, monster trucks, dinosaurs, frequent asks for candy. My grandson Grayson and I would make funny faces and laugh together a couple times a month. Now that evil that has taken Devin permanently from me takes Grayson from me as well. There was a 6-month period during the custody battle. She denied Devin any contact with Grayson. Since Devin was denied, so too was I, and so too was the rest of Devin's family. Since Devin's life was stolen, my relationship with my grandson, Grayson, has been stolen. Those 6 months have added 16 more, for a total of 22 months thus far. From behind bars and without remorse or regret, she continues to perpetuate an injustice on this family. In reaching an outcome today, I would ask that you consider this as well: the mind that chose to kill and the minds that supported this killing. A phone call would have served to begin the healing process, yet that is denied. I recognize humanity and I recognize the lack of it. When you consider the outcome of today, please consider that.
Thank you, sir. you could just come up here. You could please state your name.
I'm Diego, and I am Devyne's brother. Today I ask you, is this justice? Today I ask you, if this was your child who was murdered, have you gathered all the evidence, information, and statements? Did you treat this the way you wish a prosecution and justice team would treat this case if it was your child who is dead? Without the possibility of trial, professionals would have testified to the facts that the defendant was coaching the child to claim the false accusations as to why the defendant committed the murder. How can a woman who was teaching her child to lie, be credible to plead the way she does today? In a world where so many men don't bother with their child, any woman who would go to such lengths to keep a willing father out of their child's life should mirror to their character and be held accountable. Devyne Briggs, the last time I saw you, I asked, what kind of power do you hold in this? You gave me an answer along the lines of, well, I go to church and I hope and I pray. Essentially saying that you have no power in this. Now, there was a vote for this plea deal, and you could have been the only one to stand up for Devyne, but you sat down. You know the true impact this has caused, and have seen the amount of people show up to defend Devyne's name, so much so that we were asked to move from the lobby due to the density of people. You hold plenty of power, though you chose not to use it. Your Honor, I believe that you hold the power to allow this case to go to trial to gather crucial personnel to prove this woman has lied in court. She was not acting out of extreme emotional distress. Her actions and behaviors previously to the murder would prove she is a liar. If no trial, I ask, as well as my mother, a straight sentence with no possibility of parole or any kind of early release. Your Honor, you seem like a stand-up person. The way that you just shut him down so my mom can finish what she had to say means a lot to me. So I ask that you stand up for Devyne today and for the millions and millions of fathers facing the same entrapment. If you ask me how this has affected me, I'll start on the night of. I was an assistant trainer to a horse training barn in Tumalo. I was just getting ready to cook dinner when my mom had called me and said she's not sure what's going on, but she thinks Devyne had been murdered. I said, let's not panic, head this way, because she was in Burns. I would then call my cousin, give him all of Devyne's widowed fiance's information, and hope he could figure out what's going on. My truck was not drivable at the time, and I had no way to leave Tumalo. When my cousin called me back, the call was brief. Now the call to my brother, who had no idea what was going on at the time, was another story. He didn't know Mom was on the way to Burns. He didn't know what was going on. And when I called him and I told him that our brother was dead, we both sobbed on the phone. And every 20 minutes for the next month, somebody was in tears. Friends, family, co-workers, and co-workers of Devyne's I would run into. And for some of us, for at least once a week, we still are. I will not bring a child into this world knowing the obvious corruption in the system. Seeing the way that this case has mostly been handled as just another dead person is insane and sickening. Your Honor, I hope that you will be a part of the change and that you will see fit a better change.
Thank you. Come on up. You can take a seat and then just tell me your name whenever you're ready.
My name is Devyne Briggs, and I'm Devyne's sister.
Thank you.
My everyday life has been severely impacted by my brother's death and murder. I am depressed and I have anxiety. anxiety. I am on medication and in therapy in order to be able to function. I have nightmares daily and can't fall asleep until I'm forced to by point of exhaustion. I have been awake for over 24 hours multiple times since that day because my body refuses to sleep. I get my groceries delivered because I can't be around people. I own 3 pairs of headphones because I have to listen to music 24/7, so when one dies I have another one ready, or I will dissociate or have panic attacks. At the time of the murder, I had a job that I got promoted for and built from the ground up and was working to fulfill for over a year and had to leave behind. I was so proud of what I had made for myself and my hard work, and I could no longer handle any of it. I've spent the most of the last year and a half unemployed and in debt, barely able to get by with the most bare-bone essentials, relying on others to pay for me to simply exist. I no longer have any friends I had before. I just broke up with my disabled partner of 12 years because I'm no longer fit to take care of them. I cannot even take care of myself. I'm about to move into a family member's spare room. I am gobsmacked and horrified by the plea bargain and the conviction of manslaughter. This woman clearly premeditated and pre-planned the murder. There is mountains of evidence against manslaughter, but we will never be able to prove this in court without a trial. There is no comfort in my brother's death, not a quick and painless death, but drawn out, and he died in agony, scared and alone. His murderer still has rights to his son, the single reason for his death. And now there is no justice, no peace, as his murderer will walk away with this minimum consequences. My brother is dead, but she will be able to rebuild her life. I'm haunted that his death meant so little.
Thank you.
All right, so that same theme continues. This family not happy with the deal struck by the prosecution in this case. We need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get you more victim impact statements, so keep it here on Court TV.
Court TV fans, you demanded it.
Here we go, do it.
So now you're getting more true crime at nighttime.
Oh my God, oh my God.
48 hours on Court TV. Tonight, 7/6 Central on Court TV.
Tonight, on Closing Arguments, the Black Swan murder trial gets underway. Plus, she wrote a children's book on grief, and now this Utah mother is accused of poisoning her own husband.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
All right, before we head back to that sentencing hearing, let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us to discuss is law enforcement and litigation expert Sonny Slaughter, as well as criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Briggs. Thanks to you both for joining me this evening here on the show. Sonny, I'll begin with you. I mean, clearly the theme, as I mentioned, that seems to be jumping out from all these family members is the idea that they were not happy with this deal struck by prosecutors. What do you make of that?
You know, it's always difficult for a family when they get in the crosshairs of what they feel is justice and what they want for justice and what the prosecution can actually deliver based on evidence and facts. So apparently there was not enough evidence and facts in this particular case that the prosecution team wanted to move forward. And unfortunately, these things happen, but the family is very upset. They have a reason to be upset, but this is how justice plays out for some, and in this particular case, it's painful to watch them because they are really hurting.
Yeah, they are certainly aggrieved. And one of the things also that I think keeps coming up, David, is this idea that not only are they, and they're certainly hurt by the murder of their son, their brother, et cetera, but it seems like this custody dispute really drug out for them, and they were really impacted by that. And they're asking for sentences that don't apply to what she's ultimately pled guilty to. Now, there was a negotiated plea, 214 months, which is about 18 years or so, plus 26 months of post-prison supervision. This is what's going to be recommended by the state. That's what's agreed to. The judge can ultimately decide to do what they want. It's between 10 and 20 years for manslaughter. They want her in jail the rest of her life. The judge can't do that under these circumstances.
Yeah, without a doubt, Michael. Look, I mean, Court TV does such a great job of covering the live trials day in and day out. The fact of the matter is, most cases in our criminal justice system results with plea bargains. And what our audience is seeing here today is something that's relatively common throughout the courtrooms across the country. Prosecutors have a job to do, And a lot of the constitutions and laws have been changed greatly to give victims, families rights in the process. But they don't control the prosecutor's office discretion and authority for plea bargaining. And this is where it comes out. A lot of the times that sentence, when there's a victim's family that doesn't agree, they don't hold the cards. They're not there with the authority like the prosecutors do. And unfortunately, this is bearing out here where they're very unfortunate. They are not happy, and they're asking for things that the judicial system and the criminal justice system cannot give them.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And Mom was particularly upset that this woman, if sentenced to the sentence she's facing, will still be of childbearing age when she comes out. Interesting point made by the mom. All right, this story is interesting. On December 16, 2022, Paige Vannorsdall shot and killed Devyne Briggs in her home during a custody dispute. Now, she ultimately pleaded guilty to killing that man, but also she faces now up to 18 years in prison. She was originally charged with second-degree murder. Ultimately, she pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter. So victim impact statements are continuing. Let's get back into court.
Devyne's youngest brother. I've thought a lot about what I want to say up here, how I was going to conduct myself, and what I was going to speak about, and I just couldn't put it together. Everybody else has it on paper, and they spent a lot of time, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out how to write it all down and what exactly to say, so I'm just going to speak to you from my heart and see how it goes. On December 16th of 2022, I was by myself in a home that I had been renting from somebody, and I got the call from Diego, and it was horrible. I've already really been struggling with reality in life, in the justice system, and everything. And I just thought, how horrible is this? That a man so pure and so sweet and so kind and so strong can be taken down like that. How horrible is that? And I just completely fell apart, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't fathom anything. I just wanted to be done with this world and done with this life. But I couldn't give up so easily, and my mom needed my help. So when my mom had left her home in Burns to move to Madras and try to retain custody of Grayson, I'd been out there all by myself, hundreds of miles from my family, from anybody that I loved or cared about. I had tried to get a job. I tried to keep going, and he ended up firing me and taking me home because he found me in the bathroom crying when he told me to go give him a tool. It took me months to recalibrate myself, to even just to be able to go to work. I had been so distressed that January 19th, I ended up getting drunk, and I wanted to go back to Central Oregon, and I got in my car and I started driving, and I got about 4 miles down the road, and I pulled over because I realized what I was doing, and I called the sheriff's department there in Harney County, and I needed help from the system. I needed help. I wanted to die. I was so sad and alone. Where they then imprisoned me. They put me in a jail cell as if I was some sort of a monster. I had to get through that by myself too. I asked the justice system for help, and they punished me. I then met my beautiful fiancée, Rachel, and I slowly started putting myself back together. And to this day, I am so scared of Rachel, even though I love her and I trust her and I know that she's my loving fiancée and she's gonna be my wife. I someday worry that she's just gonna flip a switch. And I know it's not true, but I have to live with that every single day. My grandma passed away recently. It was a very simple thing. She had a medication mishap and her heart stopped. And ever since then, I've been worried. Did Rachel do something? Did my grandpa do something? Did somebody kill my grandma? And I know it's not true, and it's just something that I have to deal with because of the situation, because of what I have seen. I've spent countless hours in therapy trying to talk to somebody. I've even gone as far as trying to go to church and trying to know God and finding my own way of coping with this. I have started to really pull my life back together, and every single day the strength that I draw upon is from Devyne. The strength that he had, the kind, loving father that he was. Rachel had a son from a previous relationship, and when that man heard that she was pregnant, he left immediately. I have taken up that role and been a father for this boy for the past year or so now. And one of the other things that really gets to me on a regular basis is that Paige and Devyne really had a chance. You know, even though it was divorce and it didn't end maybe the way that you wanted it to, you really had a chance for a good, stable life. Devyne too, you guys could have been happy even though you weren't together. You could have made it work, co-parent. Kristen would have been in your lives. Grayson would have been happy. You would have been happy. You really had a chance, Paige. You really did. And I think that's the hardest part about all this is that, you know, divorce affects a lot of people, you know. A lot of us are product of divorce, and it causes a lot of issues. And between mental health, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, you know, all these problems, anger, resentment, all these things usually stem from an unhappy household as a child. And, you know, she just took that away. She took any possibility that Grayson had for a good life away. And it worries me sick every single day that Grayson doesn't have the support that he needs to get through something like this, that Paige is taking that away every single day. I've tried contacting her mother and asking her to even let my son speak with Grayson. They had met briefly last year, and Grayson was amazing to him. He was 3 years old at the time, and Grayson was just so...
All right, the victim's brother reminding the court of not only his pain, but the pain it's going to cause to the child that they had together. Quick mention, you'll notice the crosshairs on the screen, and that is the official term for it. They are crosshairs. These are not our cameras. These are not Court TV cameras. But again, we thought this was compelling enough testimony and important enough testimony that we would bring it to you. So I hope you forgive us for those crosshairs and try to overlook them as we continue our coverage. All right, we do need to take a break. We'll have more emotional victim impact statements when we come back. We'll be here on Court TV, the front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Our coverage in the custody dispute killing continues. In Oregon, Paige Vannorsdall shot and killed her ex-husband, Devyne Briggs, in her home on December 16, 2022 during a child custody dispute. She eventually pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter and now faces up to 18 years in prison via a negotiated deal between the defense and prosecutors. Let's get you back into court now for more victim impact statements.
Into our lives. I know he was someone special. He was an amazing man, a great father, friend, and especially his son. I didn't have any boys. You know, I had 2 girls, and Devyne became my son pretty quick. He was also an amazing partner for my daughter. The pain that I have watched her go through, caused by some senseless act of ridiculousness that never needed to happen, is unimaginable. No, I don't think that anyone in this courtroom knows what it's like to watch your daughter lay on the kitchen floor sobbing uncontrollably, and you can't take her pain away. You know, as a parent, that's all you want to do with your children. When they're in pain, is take the pain away. And for somebody to blatantly cause that pain it's unforgivable. In my eyes, it's absolutely unforgivable. Sorry. So, as for this court only giving his murderer 17 years, it's just unthinkable. It's absolutely unthinkable. My daughter will have more than 17 years of pain. His mom will have more than 17 years of pain. And for somebody to just have the right to take somebody's life, get a slap on the wrist basically, and get to just go on and live their life later is unbelievable to me. And so I ask the court to take into consideration all the hurt and the pain and the senseless act of murder, not manslaughter, caused, and give her either more time or straight time. Because 10 years, you know, and then paroled out is not fair. We're gonna live with this hell for more than 10 years, and all the pain and all the hurts. If anything, just make it straight time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to make a statement? Okay. Mr. Luridge?
Thank you, Your Honor. Family and friends, they get to evaluate cases with their emotions, with their sadness, with their anger, and with their despair. DAs, defense attorneys, and judges, we have to evaluate cases with law and admissible evidence in a dispassionate manner. And even though we have to look at it that way, it doesn't stop us from feeling emotions and pain, the pain that Devyne is deceased, and to hear the anguish it puts their family in. But we have to stay true to our principles of evidence and law and not let emotions affect our ability to find justice. The DA and the defense have to look at a case and look at and evaluate it. One side is, what's the worst that can happen to me at trial? The other side is, what's the lowest amount that can get me in trial? The defense has to think about 25 years. The state has to think about maybe an offender getting free altogether, or maybe a sentence of 10 years. So with both sides evaluating their situations, understanding what can be admissible and what would not be proven, you know, things like proving or disproving allegations made about Devyn. A trial would have never addressed those issues and would have never proven anything. So the resolution that was presented and negotiated really is one of compromise. It's 214 months. That's 17.833 years. I'm sure the defense has some amount of regret. I'm sure the state has some amount of regret, but that's the nature of a settlement. If it's a good settlement, Edwin feels like maybe I should have tried that case. We asked the court to follow the negotiations. Sentence the defendant at the stipulated grid block of 11B. The true grid block would have been 10I. That
All right, so the defense is saying to the judge that we agreed with the state that 17 years or 17.8 years with 26 months of post-release probation was the correct sentence. We'll hear from the state and get the judge's decision when we come back. So keep it right here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
Tonight, on closing arguments, the Black Swan murder trial gets underway. Plus, she wrote a children's book on grief, and now this Utah mother is accused of poisoning her own husband.
Closing arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
All right, folks, let's get you back to court now, where the judge is actually making her ruling, issuing her sentence.
Okay, so I will suspend the statutory fine. I will impose the criminal injuries compensation CICA restitution amount in the amount of $2,570, and that will be payable to the CICA. Did I miss anything, Mr. Rich?
I missed something. I forgot to request from the court that the firearm be forfeited that was used in the case.
That was part of the discussion originally, so I will order that the firearm will be forfeited. I'm assuming counts 2 and 3 will be dismissed with this entry of sentence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and counts 2 and 3 are hereby dismissed. Did I miss anything, Mr. Eberlein? Mr. Smith?
I believe just one brief misstatement. You said 124 months measure 11 time. I believe I should have been 120.
I said 124 months total in the DOC. Is that not right? With 120 months of Measure 11?
I believe it's 120 months of Measure 11.
And 94 months of,
Yes.
so a total of 214.
I think you got the total right. I just was commenting on the Measure 11 portion was 10 years, so 120 months.
Okay, and if that's not what I did say, that's what I meant to order. Okay? Okay. Thank you all for coming. And I know that this doesn't end the story for you. I hope that moving forward, you're able to work with Ms. Vannorsdall to figure out a way to get to see your grandchild, because I think that is the biggest injustice of all of this, is that this poor child lost its dad and he lost his mother. He shouldn't have to lose all of the rest of his family either. Has she been advised?
I'm not sure.
Has she been advised of her rights of appeal?
Yes, but I think maybe if the court could do it, that would be better.
Okay, so you have the right to appeal this within 30 days. If you can't afford an attorney, then the court will appoint an attorney for you, but you need to make sure that the request for an appeal is filed within the next 30 days. You understand? Okay, so if that's the way you would choose to go, then you need to let us know. All right, anything else?
Perhaps out of an abundance of caution, we have not, I can't think of what potentially may be feasible restitution, but if that could be left open for 90 days in case the family makes any more submissions to us.
Any objections?
I don't think we can object.
Okay, so I will leave restitution open for 90 days. If there is any restitution request, you need to make sure you get those to the DA's office within the next 90 days. Okay? Thank you. We are adjourned.
All right, so Paige Vannorsdall, she ultimately got 214 months, but it was split up, interestingly, by the judge. Ultimately, 10 years will be served in the Department of Corrections or in prison, 94 months on probation. So only 10 years for what amounted to a killing of the father of her child. Let's bring in our guest. Joining us to discuss is law enforcement and litigation expert Sonny Slaughter, as well as David Bruno, joining us, former prosecutor and defense attorney. And David, I'll start with you. Just your reaction to the ultimate verdict in this case. Again, they seem to be asking for 17.8 years. The judge split it up, 10 in prison and 7.5 or 7.4 years on probation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, once again, this plea authority goes with the prosecutor, you know, Michael, and we see a lot of live trials here. We don't see this often, but this is what happens across the courts. And I'll tell you what, sometimes victims want less. There are times in domestic violence cases, cycles of domestic violence, they're looking for dismissals. Sometimes they want more, and it goes both ways. But here, this judge actually went lower than what was expected on the negotiated plea. So if the family was not happy with the negotiated plea, well, they're not going to be happy with that final either, and that's unfortunate. And it's the criminal justice system, and this is unfortunately what happens throughout the country because prosecutors are the ones that come to decisions on what the appropriate plea agreements are. And this is just one example, and the judge can go lower, and we saw it here.
Yeah, it was interesting. Sonny, what might be some of the reasons that a prosecutor, in a case like this where the family clearly was against it and wanted this woman away for the rest of her life, she's only going to end up doing 10 years actually behind bars, why might a prosecutor look at a case and say, this is appropriate, knowing that the victims feel a certain way about it?
Well, unfortunately, this usually has to do with an investigative process, the evidence that was brought to the prosecution, what they were able to find throughout the investigation involving the victim and the perpetrator. What the family had to say ultimately, did that play a role in it? But this is really about evidence and facts, what they could prove, what they couldn't prove, what they saw as liability factors. And as David said, this happens across the country every single day. Court TV is an educational platform that really shows how court systems work. But this is one of the few cases where we saw this type of education and information play out for our viewers in a way that they don't often get to see. But this is not unusual for this to happen, unfortunately. This happens every day, all day long. And, you know, the sentence is the sentence. The individual may or may not serve the flat 214 months. They may get out early for good behavior and other things. This is not a federal case. So, you know, there are a lot of things that can make her in time probation less than the 214 months. But we have to also think about this child as well and what will happen with the child, the contact with the child and the family, just as the judge said. And don't forget, the defendant has a right to actually, you know, appeal her sentence. So the dynamics can change still again in this particular case. So while the lights go out, it's still not over.
Yeah, no doubt. Quickly, David, I was surprised to hear that there were still some rights of appeal. Usually when you strike a deal, you kind of give those up, but here she still has a right to appeal this particular sentence.
Yeah, especially in the state courts, Michael. There's always going to be issues on appeal. Depends on the forfeiture, the sentence. She'd be crazy to go and appeal that. That's for sure, because she got the benefit of the bargain. Even more so, this judge went lower. So I would envision that she's not going to be filing that notice of appeal on the advice of counsel.
Yeah, I would agree. And also there's restitution as well. That may be filed a little bit later. The judge said $2,500 at the moment, but the family reserves the right to ask for a little bit more. I'm not sure if they'll be able to collect anytime soon, but at the end of the day, it could be symbolic for the family as well.